Thank you for remaining tuned. This is Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. And to begin our conversation, which is on new guidelines for Forex, let's quickly take a look at this background report put together by our correspondent Ibrahim Dan Hamidou.
Imagine a Nigeria where businesses flourish, travelers access foreign exchange effortlessly, and investors flock to our shores. This vision is now within reach as the Central Bank of Nigeria has launched new Forex guidelines. For years, Nigeria's foreign exchange market has faced challenges, impacting everyday lives. However, the CBN's bold move aims to stabilize the economy, boost growth, and create jobs. Here is what the CBN's new Forex guidelines entail. Electronic foreign exchange matching system. Transparency unleashed. Revised market operating guidelines. Efficient transactions guaranteed. Increased Forex interventions. Market stability assured. So, what does this mean for you? Easier access to Forex for travel, education, and healthcare. Increased confidence in the economy, and potential job creation through foreign investment. According to expert analysis, the electronic foreign exchange matching system is expected to minimize manipulation, boost transparency, and attract foreign investors, thereby driving economic growth. But what about the challenges ahead? Our guests will delve into the CBN's strategy, exploring how it will impact the lives of over 233 million Nigerians. Join the conversation. How will these new guidelines shape Nigeria's future?
All right. Many thanks, Ibrahim and Hamidou, for that background report. And joining us here in the studio for the conversation, new guidelines for Forex. It's our pleasure here to welcome Professor Uche Uwaleke, Director, Institute of Capital Market Studies, Nasarawa State University, Kefi. We thank you very much for coming, Prof.
Thank you so much, Victor. Good morning, Yere. Good morning, Nigerians.
All right, and also joining us here in the studio is the brand new Dr. Niyi Akinshiju, Chairman, Independent Media and Policy Initiative. We thank you very much for coming on Good Morning Nigeria. Congratulations as well on your PhD.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
All right, we also have joining us for the conversation, but via Zoom from Ibadan, Aminu Gwadabe, the President, Association of Bureau de Change Operators of Nigeria. Many thanks for joining us, sir.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Let me even begin with Aminu, since I can hear you clearly, before we begin to have issues here and there. What does the new CBN guidelines mean for you as an operator in that terrain?
Thank you very much. What the guideline meant to me, first as an operator and also as a leader of the subsector, is one, democratization and centralization of the foreign exchange market. Two, is also in line with global standards. Three, I remember in this same platform, our subsector advocates, which we have written also to the central bank for the grant of autonomy for digitization of our retail end sector. Also, it falls in line with the call of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Taxation. I remember part of their advice, recommendation to the government and the central bank is to digitize the foreign exchange market. So it's the right time to do that. And the reason is, has been said in the first place, about accessibility, about transparency, about market deepening, because Nigeria commands a huge foreign exchange market that most of the time is not on the space. And we need to come up with a framework that we ensure this huge market is being seen, is being transparent. If you allow me to go into the features of the market, like had been said, I will say it in my own different way. The features of the FM, that's the electronic foreign exchange matching system, include one, transparency and accountability. It's true that there are a lot of market distortions. There is lack of price discovery. We have so many bits and pieces platforms, starting from, is it Aboki FX, cryptocurrencies, wallets in the system. The CBN is the catalytic actor in the foreign exchange market. They are the heartbeat of the market. So for the CBN to come up with a digitalized system to reform the market is a welcome idea to enhance transparency, because the truth of the matter is most of these platforms have ambushed what the economy is supposed to be receiving in terms of diaspora remittances, in terms of even other foreign direct inflows. So putting this market will now drive those proceeds, since it is market driven. And two is retail real-time prices, online real-time prices. The CBN will be posting the rate, just like what is happening presently. If I want to know what the interbank is doing today, I have to wait until the close of business before I will go to the FMDQ platform to know what are the high, medium, low rates. So with this framework now, 24/7, I can go in to see what are those rates. The issue here is many people, especially bank customers, don't even know what are the other competing rates in the market. So now that the Central Bank of Nigeria will be posting real-time online pricing on that platform, it will guide the public to make decisions, because the system is now democratized. Then thirdly is market-driven. The third feature is market-driven. It's going to be an interplay of various players in line with the willing buyer, willing seller concept that the CBN have introduced. CBN have come up with many policies, craft measures to ensure reforms in the market. But this circular portends the building of the substructure. It's like a building. When you are putting a house, you must have a substructure. So these are the substructures that will support the willing buyer, willing seller concept. Then finally, like we have seen over the years, the Naira has suffered volatility, have suffered loss of confidence to the extent that the dollar became the store of value for many Nigerians. It creates speculation, it creates anxiety and tension, fears in the market, because you are not knowing what are the characteristics, what is the market dynamics. And as a result of that, we find ourselves in a very, very precocious speculation. Most of the demands, the volatility we have seen on the exchange rate of the Naira is not the demand of the dollar. It's because so many proceeds, illicit proceeds, are pursuing the foreign exchange, limited for that matter, that we have. So with this transparent system, with this the digitalized system, I think I see it as going to revolutionize the market, ensure confidence, and also give competition and democratize it.
For your opening comments and how these guidelines would impact you and, of course, Nigerians in general. I'd like to come back here in the studio, but would like you to stay with us on the conversation. We'll definitely get back to you in Ibadan. I'd like to get to Professor Uche Waleke now. Mr. Guadabe, started talking about the impact of the guidelines to him. But, I know my colleague Ibrahim tried to tell us what the guidelines are, but I'd like you to make it as simple as possible, for the average Nigerian watching you at this point. What really are these new guidelines? What makes it different from the past, or rather the previous policies of the CBN? And how do you think the CBN can, ensure that this is implemented?
Thank you so much, Irene. And let me start by noting that every marketplace for an orderly conduct needs, a code of conduct. A code of conduct that speaks to the activities of market participants. Now, in the capital markets, we've had that for long now. Both the exchange and even the professional bodies, have code of conduct. The professional bodies code of conduct for their members. I was talking about, for example, Chartered Institute of Stockbrokers, and then the exchange itself also has, a code. So the whole idea of having a code is to ensure that people play by the rules, is to ensure transparency, is to ensure that the process of price discovery, that is where price is determined by demand and supply forces, that process is not, is not disrupted. So there is need to have that, that kind of code, and that's why I commend the central bank for, coming up with this kind of code. It has often been said, and I think he even alluded to it, that if you look at our exchange rate today, even if you take the official one, what is not in doubt? Even the central bank governor at some point admitted that the exchange rate today, in terms of the value of the naira, the naira appears undervalued. Undervalued means that if you look at all the fundamentals, there is reason to believe that the exchange rate, for example, shouldn't be around 1,600, or in the parallel market 1,700. That it should be lower. So that if it is 1,007, for example, it tells you that the naira is undervalued. And of course, some of the reasons for that could be as a result of speculative activities. As a result of fake demand for the dollar, and that is what this code would, one of the things the code will try to achieve. To ensure that there is transparency, ensure that the speculative activities in the market, limited, as much as possible. Now, you also look at the code. Talked about the code. The code the central bank has released, centers around basic principles. Of course, is in line with the global Forex code, and is around key principles of playing in that market, ranging from principles of ethics. There is the issue of ethics. There is the issue of governance. There is the issue of even risk management, which is very critical. And if you look at that code, it clearly brings out the different types of risks that we can find in that market, whether it is credit counterparties risk, whether it is market risk. For example, recognizing that in such a market, prices are likely to move up and down. That giving rise to market risk. Whether it's operational risk, as a result of maybe your operations, of course, failure in your operations, or even compliance risk, legal risk. So all of them have been clearly identified, in that code. There's of course the issue of also confirmation, and settlement, execution, and again, very important, information sharing. So you have all of that in that code. Again, I want to note that that code is, takes off from the global Forex code. All right, Nigeria is not the only country, doing that. As we speak, there are about 52 countries, that have introduced that Forex code. So it's good that Nigeria is doing that now. Now, you asked what's the difference between this and what we've had in the past. Of course, in the past, we have also had, central bank has also in the past been releasing foreign trade and exchange guidelines, okay? But this one now appears to be a comprehensive standard code for market participants, in the forex market. And as has been said, it's meant to, promote discipline, market discipline, promote ethical, good ethical conduct, and also ensure that the market, is transparent. In the stock market, for example, I'm sure if you go to any exchange, even the Nigerian exchange, okay, on the wall you will see real-time prices, scrolling. So you know the price of a stock, okay? You can check the price of a stock real-time anytime you want. So I think that is the kind of thing that wants to happen now in the money market, where the central bank will, in the forex market, where the central bank will also, using the forex, the matching system, also make that available. As I said earlier on, this is one good practice that we've seen in many countries, particularly in Kenya, because if you look at the forex matching system and the current code released by the central bank, okay, if you look at it, I was looking at it, and side by side with that of other countries. If you look at that of Kenya and look at that of Nigeria, you wouldn't see much difference, because that tells you Kenya did that as far back as 2023, March 2023. So that tells you that they are all trying to go in line with the, the global, the global practice. I will speak to this a lot more in the course of this conversation.
Right. Thank you very much, Professor Waleke. Let me now get to Dr. Niyi Akinshiju. Now, both Professor Waleke and Aminu in Ibadan have talked about how the system has become democratized and can now, is transparent and can now drive competition by virtue of it being market-driven. But what's in it for the ordinary Nigerian, particularly those businesses that are forex dependent?
I think the whole purpose of the code is actually to protect and advance the interests of the client side, because the code talks specifically to transaction. It reduces all the market dynamics to one transaction. So every item in that code talks to what happens at the point of demand, the activation of demand and supply. So to a large extent, it is to protect the client, to empower and enhance the capacity of the principal, the broker, or the seller, as the case may be, or rather the person that facilitates the buy or the sell. That's the broker. And this is why I have this problem here, because up to now, we usually don't even know the role, the exact definition of the participants in the markets. And this is one of the issues the code, is defining. How do you identify the facilitator of transaction? So is he a principal in that transaction, or is he an agent in the transaction? A principal means, for instance, banks are usually involved in in fact, they are the primary foreign transaction entities. And of course, you also have the BDCs, you have the merchant banks and all that. Our thinking is that, anytime we needed Forex, we approach a bank and there's a desk that provides us whatever we are supposed to request for. Now, the code, for the first time, people like us are now saying that, okay, the banks with their Forex desks can actually trade Forex by themselves, can actually facilitate supply and demand between the bank itself without even going to the market, between the bank and the clients, where the bank is playing the principal role. And I'm using the bank as one of those agents now. And then you also have a situation where the client may want to, may rather want to do business with clients on the other side in that ecosystem. So the whole thing is about strengthening the capacity, of the industry. One, then two, about defining particular roles, especially in consideration of the digitalization and automation of the system. I think it's important now because it is time like this. If the central bank had not put, and this is my thinking, had not put this system in place, the automation of a system could actually be abused in various ways, And just like Prof said, the thinking generally is that there's always distortion in our system because there's no tracking system. There's always distortion in the Forex market, Nigerian Forex market, because the CBN does not even have the capacity to appropriately track, One, you have different spaces doing their transaction, and there is no point where there's an oversight opportunity, for the CBN. So this is going to enhance the capacity of the CBN. It is also going to enhance the capacity of players in the market because the code is now requiring qualified persons, trained persons to manage specific activities in the value chain. It will look complicated, but my thinking is the CBN had done the right thing by allowing practitioners to understand what their role will be, especially in communicating to clients, ordinary clients. If you are giving an order, if you are placing an order with a broker, the broker must tell you every details pertaining to that order. So to a large extent, I think this would facilitate transparency as submitted. It will also facilitate liquidity because foreign investors that had been the major focus of the CBN, and we see some bit of reluctance of these investors coming in. Perhaps one of the reasons is that the Nigerian system is opaque, But now with this open process, there's a tendency for the foreign investor to even look at this code and be persuaded that whatever is bringing will be safe, and it will get value for whatever is exporting into the Nigerian space.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Akinshiju. I'd like to get to Mr. Gwadabi now. I hope he's still with us and the connection is as clear as... All right. Okay. We'll get to him much later. But let's get to Professor Uche Waleke now. Listening to all of this, interesting for you in the finance space. It makes more sense. It is clearer and all of that. But, of course, to the Nigerian watching you at this time, who is not a professor of the capital market like yourself, or not a doctor like Niyi Akinshiju, is thinking, how does this affect inflation? How does this affect interest rates?
Exactly.
How does this lead to economic growth? Tell us.
Thank you so much. Of course, they are all linked. These macro variables are linked. Interest rate is linked to inflation. Okay, and inflation is also linked to, economic growth. Okay, so how does it affect, let's say, inflation, for example? If the central bank succeeds in its bid to firm up the value of the naira, okay, let me repeat, firm up the value of the naira. Now, I am not talking about stabilizing the value. A lot of people talk about stabilizing the value, but I think what is more important now, that's my view, I take the view that what is more important for now, from the point of view of the average Nigerian, is to strengthen the naira. Okay? Once we can strengthen the naira, then we can talk about stabilizing the naira. You hear a lot of conversations around stabilizing naira, and I ask, stabilizing the naira around what exchange rate? So you want to stabilize the naira around 1,600 or 1,650? For me, that's the equilibrium price is too high. And as I've been admitted, naira is undervalued. So if the naira is undervalued, we should try to see how we can, firm it up how we can strengthen, the naira. You have a country where you have reserves, foreign reserves today is in excess of $38 billion. Okay, the CBN governor, even disclosed that in the, recently, I think at the last MPC meeting, $38 billion sufficient to finance over 14 months of, of goods. Okay, so when you have that kind of arsenal, that kind of reserves, okay, one should expect that it should rub off positively on the value of your naira. In other words, it should help to strengthen it, because the whole essence of reserves, by the way, is even to, to help strengthen, to defend, develop the naira. So I make that point again, that what is more important is to strengthen the naira. In other words, reduce the exchange rate, because that's what will bring down inflation. It's not about stabilizing it around a particular, because some people argue that what is more important is, stabilize it around where it is. Okay, it shouldn't have, but we need to, bring it down. I give you a recent experience I had. I was in Guinea last week, Guinea Conakry, and in the hotel I stayed. Okay, a night in that hotel, when they printed my, of course I didn't, I was sponsored, I didn't pay. When they printed my bill, I saw that it was 2 million Guinea franc a night. 2 million Guinea franc a night. Okay, this is a place where you spend hundreds of, thousands of dollars.
Is that why you were quick to say that you were sponsored?
Yeah, of course. No. Why I'm even telling you this is I'm trying to relate it to the fact that it's not about stabilizing the value of the currency, because this is 2 million Guinea franc. Okay, now the question you now ask is, what is the exchange rate of Guinea franc to the dollar? The exchange of officially you will see around maybe 9,000 Guinea francs to the dollar. Okay, but of course when you go to the street you get that 10,000 Guinea francs to the dollar. So 2 million Guinea franc translates to maybe around 200 dollars. Okay, that's a night. Equivalent of here maybe around 370 thousand naira. So that tells you that, and this is a country where you have, I wouldn't use Guinea specifically, but generally where you have this kind of exchange rates, what you find is you find millionaires that are poor millionaires. Remember, poor millionaires, people with millions. You have millions, but you are poor because your millions cannot buy anything, buy much. So it's not about stabilizing. I repeat, it's about ensuring that our naira exchange rate comes down. Again, people cite the case of South Korea. Again, I was in Seoul. I was also in Busan. Okay, where you have you have a dollar to exchange it for as much as over 2,000 or something, the Korean won. All right, but in the case of South Korea, it's understandable. When these countries devalue their currencies, okay, they do so because they want to promote exports. They have diversified export base, but that is not the case with Nigeria. So we shouldn't be, the concern of the central bank, in my view, should be how to, reduce the exchange rate. And it's not just the central bank. The central bank should work in harmony with the fiscal authority to do that. And of course, the only sustainable way you can do that is to to diversify your export base, to boost production. And that's why I'm happy that today, on the fiscal side, effort is being made, in that direction. The work of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms, is geared towards having a friendly business environment, okay, ensuring that this issue of multiple taxes, for example, don't discourage, production. And that's one way you can also bring down inflation. So if you have reduced exchange rates, it will feed into, you have the pass-through, into inflation. Inflation is likely to come down. Part of why you have this dollarization or penchant to the whole dollar is also because of the, the fact that the naira, the exchange rate is high. Okay, look at the country I just mentioned. Okay, why will people just want to pay for, you're carrying 2 million, of the country's currency. So in that type of economy, what is common is that you find economic agents quoting their prices in dollars. People now carry dollar, prefer dollar because the other one is cumbersome. That is what I don't want us to get into in this country, when you have exchange rate rising. Because when you look at the forward, sometimes I get scared. when I look at the forward market, the forward Forex market, you look at the forward Forex market, somebody is prepared to pay, say, 2,100 naira to the dollar in the next 3 months or 6 months. Anybody who tells you he's ready to pay, he needs dollars in 3 months' time, and he's telling you, let us agree that in 3 months' time, I will give you 2,100 naira in exchange for the dollar that I need in 3 months' time. That's a forward contract. Anybody that does that, okay, is only believing or has reason to believe that the dollar will do what? Will further, appreciate. The exchange rate will go beyond 2-1. That's why he's saying in 3 months' time I will give you 2,001, because he thinks that in 3 months' time it will even be 2,300. So he wants to lock in the whatever the exchange rate now. So when you want to look at the direction of the exchange, sometimes you look at the forward market. And why this code is important now is that it will also check those excesses, those speculative attack, on the naira as it were. Which is why sometimes I also get worried when I see this recent, sometimes you see the central bank publishing their expectations. These are opinion survey. So, for example, you find them publishing a survey of the opinion of businesses on where exchange rate is likely to be. Most of those surveys will produce, if you like, negative outcomes, because those people will say exchange rate is likely to go up. So when they publish those kinds of data, even though they are factual, all right, in my view, the central bank should try to manage, such, because when you publish them, it also has the effect of, triggering panic, triggering speculative activity. Because if people think that exchange rate will rise, what would you do if you are told that exchange rate will rise? You would want to go and buy now. Is that not so?
Exactly.
So that is also, encouraging, if you like, spurious demand for dollar, not genuine demand for dollar. So to answer your question, they are all linked. We need to bring down the exchange rate. We need to strengthen the value of the naira. Okay, so that if you do that, because we import so much, inflation can also come down. We'll easily see the pass through. On the other hand, you also need to deal with the inflation. The central bank, is trying on its own side, trying to see how the excess liquidity in the system can be mopped up. That's why you find the central bank raising, interest rates. Unfortunately, though, okay, what we say is that the money in the circulation, which the central bank, keeps targeting, over 90% of that is circulating outside the banks. Okay, the data is central bank data shows it. Currency in circulation went from about 3 trillion in February to 4.14 trillion in August, despite the, aggressive monetary policy we have,
All right.
had. So it's important for the bank working in conjunction with the fiscal authority to see that exchange rate is brought down before you can talk about stability. Okay. Let's reduce exchange rate. Let's strengthen the value of the naira before we can talk about stabilizing.
All right, Professor Waleke, thank you very much for your thoughts. I can see that Aminu Gwadabe is back with us. So I'm just going to ask, us is a country where we are never short of laws and rules, but implementation is often the challenge that we have as a nation. And so what recommendations will you be making to the CBN to ensure that these new guidelines succeed and yield the required dividends for not only those of you who are players in that sector, but to those also who, depend on Forex for their livelihoods, and perhaps those who needed to go to school and other, needs for Forex?
Thank you very much. I think first, the adoption of automation is the way to go. And then secondly, there should be inclusiveness. Like somebody have raised the issue of identification of participants. For now, that matching system is to the African market. It's more like, for me, trading online, like from your FX decks with other clients, with other banks. So it's like automating what the FMDQ are doing right now. So it's the best way to go because we are talking of democratization, we are competition. Because for you to discover prices, you must create competition. You don't leave prices for monopolies to determine. And the market is so dominated by monopolies. So this will go a long way in enhancing competition. The civil should keep it up. Then secondly, like I said, it's about inclusiveness. There is the need to include the third level of the market, which is the bureau de change. The foreign exchange is the oxygen of the nation. And there is no country in the world that allows its exchange rate to be totally and freely determined by market forces, even in America. 3, the BDC have proven the only language, the invisible forces here, we talk of invisible forces. What are these invisible forces? They are behaviors. So if we identify their behaviors, the only way to checkmate behaviors is to use another approach of checkmating volatility and especially speculation. A lot of Nigerians have lost confidence in our local currency. So bringing back that confidence, even the international investors have lost confidence. Don't forget Nigeria is in a gray list. And gray list portend, dismissal if care is not taken. I'm happy both the central bank and the security agencies are making a lot of sensitization, engagement, awareness, so as we can get out of this gray list. So it's important to continue to include people. We are talking about inclusiveness. The goal of inclusiveness is far yet to be achieved. So there is the need to include other participants so that the market will be robust, the market will be democratized. Then thirdly, the documentation requirements. You see, we are talking of digital KYC now. So a lot of challenges lies with documentations. You are telling me I can do my transaction from my desk, yet you want to cite my passport. When we are in the era of BVN, NIN, which all these platforms have already gotten about my features. So we should also look into digital identification, because continuing with manual identification, it will make the system cumbersome and very complex for operators. Then finally, there should be shared services value. Like I said, as an association and self-regulatory organization, we have forwarded many frameworks on how our members can come together and unify, digitalize the retail end of the market. What we are seeing now, P2P is even taking over the retail end of the market. How many people now buy cash dollar to make payments? How many people use their DOM account to make payments? Even for commodities, even for seasonal demand. Ahead of seasonal demand, invisible transactions. So the banks are the wholesale, the bureau de change are the retail end participants. They are the third leg. Include them in this system so that you can have a wider market, you can have a wider participant, a wider data to ensure that you have achieved your target. Share services should be encouraged among small operators. We have a platform. Right now, we render our returns online real time to the Central Bank of Nigeria, to the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit, to this list of wanted persons by the Nigerian government. Licensed bureau de change are already integrated into the system. So there is the need for share services. The central bank should look into how they will include every participant. We're in support of it, and that finally, like they said, it will enhance accessibility, it will enhance availability. Why do we see different markets? Parallel, official, black market, even in petrol prices, is availability. So a robust system like this, we create volumes, we create transactions. There are millions of transactions that happen per day in this country that the central bank have no knowledge of. So automating this and democratizing it. Many people don't want to come into that because there is no framework. So now framework has been built. It's for the central bank to put friendly policies that people can come and be participant in the market. Then finally, also, like I said, put policies that participants will have confidence, will come into the market and ensure market confidence. So these are my recommendations.
Mr. Guadabe, for your thoughts there. Let's get back in the studio now, and Dr. Kinshuju would respond to this question. I want us to be specific about MSMEs now, because they are the main drivers of our economy. How does this policy impact on them directly? How would it affect, those managing micro, small, and medium enterprises?
There is an impression when we are talking about Forex in Nigeria, it is always on the supply side. And the market is made up of both supply and demand. So the concentration had been, how do we assess? The assumption is that there must be supply in place. And because of that assumption, we are seeing, and we are experiencing this this increase in rates. The demand had always outstripped supply, and that is where your question comes from. The major operational percentage of the economy is located in the medium to small scale enterprises. And to a large extent, if our reality is that we have a large percentage of medium to small size business entities, how do we drive capacity, in that segment of the economy to be able again, to enhance supply, of foreign exchange, so that we look at their role, their importance, and their place in the value chain, and see, is it about increasing capacity to produce more to serve the Nigerian jurisdiction, or produce more, serve the Nigerian jurisdiction, and then export? So when you export at that level, it means that you are earning and it is enhancing supply. And that, of course, will supplement whatever we are earning, from our natural resources, which is controlled by the federal government. So to a large extent, for me, this code must serve the purposes of the demand and the supply side, such that, and I see that thread in the code while going through. I see the protection of the person who wants to supply, as a small-time operator, and because you have had issues of defaults, even in repatriating hand foreign exchange into the country. There's a huge default. It's an ecosystem that the CBN will still need to address properly. People take things out of the country. About 2 or 3 years ago, the policy that was put in place was near a Bolekaja, resulting to a Bolekaja scene, where the owner, the operator, will take the money, will take goods out, wants to divert the hand dollars, the hand foreign exchange, so to speak, and the CBN is trying to fight tooth and nail, to find a way of insisting that this money must be brought back. So I still don't see a strong alignment and enablement in that process, where you take goods and services out of the country and you conveniently, transparently, take it back. Of course, we have the entities that, how do I call it now, that should ensure that when you take a value of goods outside, the same value in monetary terms or in foreign exchange, is also taken back. So that will help supplement whatever we are earning as a federal system. So to your question, the MSNEs naturally would also depend on the foreign exchange market for their exports. For their imports, especially of critical raw materials. But I want to appeal. Can we also, while we are insisting on importing so much, can we also start seeing how we can start processing raw materials, in the country, so that we reduce pressure, on the foreign exchange markets, because we have so much raw materials because raw materials are food, for instance. Cassava, for instance, is a raw material. But it's a raw material waiting to be transformed, processed into different kinds of raw materials. And Nigeria is the largest producer of cassava in the world. And yet, we import industrial starch, and a number of associated derivations from the same cassava. So can we look at that primary engagement to transform that product into a raw material, by so doing indirectly, reduce pressure on our foreign exchange markets. So, and it should start, of course, with the MSMEs. Good. I have observed. I've observed what the Committee on Fiscal and Monetary Policy, taxation, are doing by exempting companies under, annual returns under 25 million naira, exempting them from withholding tax. And of course, the the Finance Act 2021 had exempted that category of people from paying company income tax and all that. But just like some people are also saying, I want to join my voice with that. The exchange rate had deteriorated, when that figure was stated in Finance Act 2021 at 25 million, the exchange rate was about 400, 450 to $1. Now it's about 1,500, 1,600, more or less. So perhaps there's a need to increase that threshold so that it covers more people, and it is a very good idea because it enhances capacity of individual MSMEs, to earn and of course to reinvest and expand. But again, we need as a country to consciously, and the CBN should try to do this, to consciously drive the banking industry, to help production capacity of the MSMEs.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Niyi Akinshiju. Now, I've just been wondering, in this conversation, I've heard big words, use of big words, terminologies, whether from the prof or from the doctor, or even from the operator. And I'm wondering, Professor Waleke, how the CBN should communicate the benefits and implications of these new guidelines to the ordinary Nigerians, not only so that they get a buy-in of Nigerians, but also they can understand from where they stand to say, okay, this is what CBN is trying to do.
Thank you so much, Victor. Before I forget, let me, by way of emphasis, support the last statement he made. Now, the central bank should have a deliberate policy, deliberately, support MSMEs,
through commercial banks.
Through the banks. Okay. In the past, we used to have credit guidelines. Okay. We also used to have incentives that banks get for lending to the real sector. So I think the central bank should also look into that. One way by which they can do that, in my view, is to look at the volume of the cash reserve requirements. Today, commercial banks are expected to drop 45%, of their cash with the central bank. Okay, and that has accumulated to trillions of naira. So the central bank should explore ways of utilizing part of those huge cash reserve requirements, for the benefit of the MSMEs. again, through the banks. Okay, one way by which they can do that is to implement what is called differentiated cash reserve requirements. Okay, in that case, if you're a bank and there is evidence you have lent to the real sector, particularly MSMEs, you have an incentive. Okay, part of your CRR is returned to you to be able to do that. It happens in other climes, and I think it's something the central bank should look at. Now, to your question,
communication, yes.
Yeah, communication. Well, let's even start with the document itself, and I'm also going to make a few recommendations on how that document, can also be improved, based on, other jurisdictions, practices in other jurisdictions. Now, that document, the one I saw, the one I have, okay, when you finish a document like that, one expects you to, at the end, include what is called glossary of terms. Okay, if you check code of conduct, the FX code of conduct in other countries, okay, whether South Africa, whether Kenya, you would find glossary of terms. So what glossary of terms does is to help explain, some of the terms in the body of the work.
Documents.
Okay, in the body of the work, you find things like market culture. You find, some terms that need, explanation, by way of glossary of terms, and that will also help you when you are implementing, so that there is no ambiguity as to, what was intended. Okay. When you have glossary of terms, it explains, it sheds light on what you have in the body. So that's one way they can communicate. In that document, they should include, glossary of terms, and also try as much as possible to include frequently asked questions. Frequently asked questions with respect to the documents. Let it be on their websites. Frequently asked questions. What is the FS code of conduct? Why is it necessary? How will the MSMEs benefit from it? Frequently asked questions, short should be added to, that, included in their website. So anybody accessing their website should be able to see frequently asked questions. Okay, so that's number 2. Now, regarding the recommendation I said I will make, as I said, is a good document, and it's also a good initiative by the Central Bank of Nigeria. But I would expect that, again, it's not something we should also approach in a hurry. I wouldn't know whether the central bank before now has been sensitizing the banks, okay? But we shouldn't jump into it in a hurry. What comes to mind now for me is this e-Naira thing. E-Naira, very good, okay? But you can see, from what we know now, it's evident that perhaps they didn't put in place enough measures to ensure wide adoption, which is why today, nobody hears about the e-Naira. We are in a hurry to be the first in Africa, to launch e-Naira.
I've only heard somebody speak of it at a store. He wanted to pay in e-Naira, and he did go through though.
Yes. Oh, it's still
but
on,
not more than
just,
once.
Exactly. So the point I'm making is that whatever we want to do, we should always. I do that. Maybe my training as an academic, I try to look at what could go wrong. Okay. What are the likely unintended consequences, outcomes? So you try to fix it. You see, I was looking at it and I was asking myself, why is it that, for example, if you look at the 52 countries, okay, 4 countries are in America, okay, and in America, North America, for example, US is not involved. US has not done that. It's only Canada. Then you have Brazil, Mexico, and Colombia in Southern America. Okay. Then you look at Asia, Middle East. Okay. You have about 13 countries there. Then many of the countries are in Europe. About 32 countries are in Europe. In Africa. So the question, what aroused my curiosity? I was saying Africa has 54 countries. How come it's just 4 countries in Africa? That's implementing it, namely South Africa, Angola, Mauritius, and recently Kenya. That was last year. So the question is, the central bank should be able to answer these questions too, because that could explain what may go wrong. Okay, also looking at the countries that are doing this, do they have any commonalities in their forex market, to justify the implementation of that? The ones that are not doing it, okay, what could be the reason? If you look at the oil-producing countries where we share, we have commonalities. Why is that oil-producing countries are not doing that? Okay.
So, what do you think are the drawbacks of these guidelines?
No, I'm just thinking aloud. These are the kinds of studies or research the central bank should do, so that they prepare very well before they do that.
From your own research now, what do you think are the likely drawbacks of this policy?
Okay, now, you see, this code of conduct, as I said, is necessary. When you're in a marketplace, there should be guidelines and so on. But we are adopting that of the global forex code, all right? And if you look at many of these countries that have already done that, they have diversified export base. Okay, some of them are also implementing flexible exchange rates, or many. Okay, but not full flexible exchange rate, just as has been noted. You hardly find a country that will completely float its currency. Of course, in Nigeria, even though it is said we are doing flexible, it's not complete flexible because central bank intervenes from time to time. Okay, so we need to look at some of these things, what could go wrong. Now, to my recommendation, I said there's need to, look at it so that we don't jump into it, to allow some time. It says effective date is October 14th. The document I saw, effective date October 14th. And under the reporting mechanism, it says that banks, are expected to submit quarterly reports regarding their compliance with the Forex Code within 14 days. After the end of the calendar quarter, within 14 days after the end of the calendar quarter. Now, effective date is October 14, and the code is requiring the banks to submit their first report by 31st of December. Yeah. So you just have November, December. So that's not a quarter. Now, if you look at that of Kenya, effective date was March 23rd, Kenya, and their first report was July 14th. In other words, allowing April, May, June, the quarter to complete before you now submit.
Yeah, so it appears rushed.
Yes. So this is what is in the current code, and I want to believe that they are listening, so that they can look at it and even ensure that it reflects what is provided there. Because if you say within 14 days at the end of the calendar,
all right.
That is what should.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Waleke. Yeah. We are almost running out of time completely. Let me get to Minu Gwadabe, who's joined us via Zoom from Ibadan. I just want to ask, maybe in 2 minutes, you could tell us what the likely short-term and long-term prospects for the Naira would be under these new guidelines, in your opinion.
Well, in the short run, like most of the speakers have said, timing is very, very important for implementation, so that we can put all the, look at the consequences, unintended consequences, to ensure that it's a very good document that will be implemented. As it is now, there's a lot of market precariousness. There's a lot of volatility. However, I think it is going to address, because it's now tending to say that there will be more liquidity into that market. And as liquidity come into the market, definitely the Naira we appreciate. We have just seen it even by way of manual approach. Anytime the CBN play its catalytic role in terms of boosting the market liquidity, definitely we notice appreciable appreciation of the Naira. Also, in terms of boosting supply, because it's all about supply, I can see the central bank working hard to ensure that they bring in more liquidity through bonds, through creating interest rate for people to come in, and then the price of oil with the tension in the Middle East is going up. So all this will add up to ensure that Naira is stable. My own target, whether willing buyer, willing seller, the rate should be about 1,005 for planning and stability of the exchange rate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Guadabe. The professor and the doctor in the studio, screamed when you mentioned that amount. Still too high. All right, I'll let Dr. Niyi Akeshiju. Your final thoughts in 20 seconds. We're out of time, actually, so we can wrap up.
Once a process gets digitalized, at least there will be a semblance of process audit, process transparency, and most importantly, process discipline. So I think what is on ground now would enhance trading and transaction in the foreign exchange market.
All right. Dr. Niyi Akeshiju, Chairman, Independent Media and Policy Initiative, we thank you very much for coming on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you so much.
Let me also thank Professor Uche Waleke, Director, Institute of Capital Market Studies, Nasarawa State University, KEFI. Many thanks for your time and thoughts.
My pleasure, Victor.
All right, and finally, let me thank Aminu Guadabe, President, Association of Bureau de Change Operators of Nigeria. Thank you very much for joining us on this segment of the program. All right, we go on a break here, and when we return, we taste the millions with hunger.